I worked with these people online. They were kind of workshopping around playfulness and what it means and how we use it in movement. And they use that for helping children with special needs to develop language skills, movement skills, abilities to connect and engage, and to stimulate neurological pathways. But I realized, one, that I really am not created to work with kids like that, because it requires endless patience and endless facing of failure, or endless letting go of helping someone completely, and I just cannot deal with that. But what I feel I learned from that month of sessions with these people, they work with Feldenkrais and Annette Baniel methodologies. So basically making movements, small movements, to notice where your attention is drawn and what experience you have and what habits you come into, and if you can make the movement easier. And when you're working with autistic kids, I think it adds a layer of or not just autistic kids, but kids with all kinds of neurological problems. Developmentally, how we develop into adults, because children is like a different experience, a different category of interaction and responsibility in life. But as we develop, we are trying to get to a functional state where, you can tie your shoes, you can handle a fork to eat, so you can feed yourself, you can dress yourself, you can establish communication with people. What else do we have to learn to do? We have to learn to learn. We have to develop learning skills, so we need language. So dressing yourself, eating, being able to communicate, expressing yourself, developing some language skills, connecting with people, so being able to engage, like when I speak to you, can you meet me somewhere? Can you have a response to me, so that we're like bonding? And you're not supposed to do that only in a therapy session. And yeah, just being a functional human being, being able to procreate, connect with someone, establish a connection, being able to hold down a job, so maybe like being able to use language skills, being able to use cognitive skills to learn, through thinking things through. But all of this arises developmentally from when you pop out of wherever you pop out of. Some kids pop out of there, and some kids, like with cesarean, they pop out of it somewhere else. But when you pop out, you're not like fully baked. You still have to developmentally develop. So there's developmental stages that you have to pass through. And those developmental stages are linked with you continuing to develop your brain to become functional adult. Because while you're a child, somebody else takes care of you, it's feeding you, helping you regulate. Your nervous system is not fully baked when you come out of the oven. You're not fully baked. So like you eat something and you get like colicky, and like your stomach hurts you, and you're like, and you start crying because you're having a sensation, and your nervous system gets like a signal that something down here is not okay, and you're like, "Wah!" So you cannot regulate yourself. You cannot say to yourself, oh, it's okay, you ate too much. It was hard to digest this milk. It's gonna be fine in 10 or 15 minutes. It's going to like pass through your digestive system. You just have to tolerate the sensation for a bit. You cannot integrate your sensations yet. You cannot manage your sensations, your perceptions, and interoceptions or perceptions outside. So you need someone to hug you and hold you and rock you and say, oh, it's going to be okay. And the soothing voice of the mom and the movement like soothes the water in your body, calms down the nerves around your fascia. And you can regulate, so you could stop crying so that your brain can come down from a stress response. So all this, 6 minutes, oh my God. What I'm trying to say is that when we pop out of the oven, here or here, I don't know if some of them pop out of there. I don't think so. Anyway, when you pop out, you have a few developmental stages to hit, and then you go through puberty when your sexuality comes on, and then you're still developing, still growing up and stuff. But the first, until you start walking, you don't even have a lumbar spine. Like, you don't even have grown-up cartilages. You're really soft. So when you're falling up and down, you're hitting your head, you don't feel it as much. You don't break anything. You don't twist anything, because everything in you is very flexible. The fascia hasn't solidified around certain areas to give you a bit of tensegrity so that you could stand upright or like pick up heavy things. You're still a baby. Your head is still like much heavier than other parts of you. But developmentally, for you to develop language skills, for you to learn to tie your shoelaces, for you to learn to connect to people, you're doing this through movement. Basically, and why do I say through movement? You're doing it through the experience that movement creates in you. It starts to light up your brain. Because basically what happens is, as your mom comes close to you, you see this blob coming closer to you, and that creates neurological activity in your brain. You see things coming close. That's a movement that you perceive. And you respond, like you do whatever you do. You're doing something, and the doing, wherever you're taking your attention, it's moving your head. Or if she like gives you her finger and then you hold her finger, you're like reaching towards something that's sticking in front of you and creating neurological stimulation in your brain. And you're like putting your hand around it, and that putting your hand around it is wiring your hand into your spine and helping you lift your head. And progressively, you're touching your feet, you're putting... I just took a shower, you can relax. So yeah, you're like sticking your toes in your mouth and tasting. And that's creating stimulation. You're starting to differentiate. Oh, this toe tastes like this, and then my toe after a shower tastes a little bit different. And the differentiation is lighting up things in your brain, and your brain is developing. It's like developing all these skills. And then people were talking to you, like you're making sounds, and they start saying, oh, this is like a bow, and this is a bunny, and the bunny is jumping and it's kissing the bow, and they're naming things for you. So as your attention is getting drawn to this thing, your attention, your eyes, your sensation of the perception of this is blue, something is waking up here, is getting named as blue. So you're naming it as blue. So language skills develop out of sensations that come through movement or perception, and perception is movement. I'm taking my awareness. So movement is basically, movement cannot happen without our attention. For us to get moved, for us to move, something has to draw one of our senses somewhere. I have to hear something for me to move. I have to hear something for my attention to start going there, for me to start yanking my head round. I have to have attention towards my gurgling digestive system telling me I'm hungry, so that I could, reach out and put this in my mouth or whatever I'm eating. It's like I'm putting my attention in my digestive system and reaching for food. It's where your attention is going that's driving your body, your intentions towards something, and the sensation that the movement produces is neurologically pathwaying these patterns in your body that allow you to reach and connect for the purpose of play, giggling, connecting, regulating your nervous system. We're social beings. We like to be with other people. Lockdowns were not normal. People got sick. We're getting our attention stimulated, which is moving our bodies intentionally towards something. And the experience of movement is creating neurological patterning in us that becomes a habit. So it doesn't have to be a huge learning experience. In the beginning, developmentally, it's a learning experience. For kids, they have to put it together to build up the neurological pathways, because they don't know how to stand up. They can't just do this, okay? They have to, can't believe I'm doing this. They have to be here, moving their toes, blah, blah. And then as they're moving at a certain point, they might, so heavy, oops, and they're on their belly. And then they hear something and they're like, what was that? Or in this, I like probably did like 3 months of a baby experience just to learn to push for my head up. But basically they're building this up. They have to sleep a lot because they're doing so much brain work. So these patterns build up in our developmental stages towards adulthood, so that we could learn to dress, learn to feed ourselves with a spoon, learn to figure out on our own that if I want to get from here to here, maybe I have to push something away to be able to get there. So I'm starting to figure things out. I'm starting to learn, who am I? Who are you? What do I like? What do you like? And how could we get along? It's like, it's a learning to dress yourself, a learning to be able to speak. And incidentally, like, language skills develop out of the ability to be able to be moved, out of the ability for my attention to go somewhere. If I have an inability to focus my attention, say there is this kind of disorder where what your eyes see is not lighting up the brain, so the visual is not triggering your brain to stimulate your attention to go there, so you cannot actually be motivated through sight to reach towards things. So you might have to wait for a sound to be able to do something, and that can create a delay in your ability to develop certain patterns in your body to feed yourself, for example, because you cannot rely on the visual stimulation of your mom giving you the spoon, or, like helping you engage with visuals about this is food coming towards your face. So you might not be as skillful in regulating your body to catch the spoon. And but the thing is that these sensations are driving our awareness somewhere, and our awareness is driving our physical response, and then the physicality of the response is creating a sensation in us. Movement is creating a sensation in us that's laying down the neurological pathway. And in the process, your mom is naming things for you, and you're connecting with whoever is your caregiver, and you're starting to develop language. But if you're not being stimulated visually, because for whatever reason you have a delay in your ability to attend to a stimulus, so you're not moving your head, I'm not interested, somebody's going like ooh, and I'm just not interested, my attention doesn't go there, I'm not connecting, then I'm not going to be able to learn to lift my head so successfully, and I'm not going to be able to develop the language skills related to that interaction. And so I might become speech delayed, or I might have trouble using parts of my body. So what I'm trying to say is that attention drives movement, and movement drives neurological development. So when we talk about somatic practice, when we talk about yoga, when we talk about, I don't know, you name it. I think with martial arts, like with martial arts, you might go into it with some kind of perceptions of strength, and with yoga, you might go into it with some perceptions of flexibility, which I think is... Okay, I've never gone into yoga because I wanted to be more flexible. That was not what drove me, but I hear a lot of people talking that, oh, yoga, flexibility, oh, I want to do it because I want to be more flexible. So I don't know, I think some people connected with that, but and I think for martial arts, maybe you do it as a sport to have somewhere to go, to engage with people, but both yoga and martial arts have slightly different original purposes, and those purposes were to make more efficient your connection between the mind and the body, so that you can become more able to achieve whatever you want. It can be different. It's just that you become more efficient in how you use yourself, how you're able to communicate, how you're able to structure along a path of achieving a project, how much stronger you can be, how you don't get too tired or drowsy, or you cannot focus, whatever. And people develop these practices to develop these practices, to develop these capacities, they use movement, because movement is what stimulates your attention and helps you to neurologically develop your brain. So this is something used by kids. It's something used by people who wanted to develop special capacities. In yoga, we call them siddhis. You're not really supposed to go after them, but whatever. They happen if you start practicing something that is neurologically stimulating you. And then you also have getting old and aging, and you've learned how to tie your shoes, you've learned how to use the spoon, and then you have a job where you go and sit in an office chair and you start doing that. Like, you've figured out the moves, and then you repeat these moves like day in, day out, until your shoulder starts giving out, your brain starts going numb, because once you learn a pattern, then you don't have to bring your awareness to it. You just step on the toe, however you've learned to step, you step on the toe, it sends the signal that this neurological pathway now has to get stimulated, and bam, I'm loading here, this hip is lifting, I'm swinging my knee, I'm twisting through my spine, I'm extending, I'm shifting my weight, this huge complex dance that we call walking. We've learned to do it, and we've established our patterns, how much I shift, how much I tone this butt muscle. I don't have to be responding to the reality of the surface this moment. I don't have to be responding to my engagement with the air, whether I'm hearing the bird sing so I can lift my head. No, I can plow through the moment I recognize one stimulant. I can plow through the whole neurological pathway without giving a second thought. So I stop being stimulated. And I become a bit robotic, and I'm not creating new neurological pathways in my body. So in somatic practice, we try to slow down things so that we notice what is being awoken in us, which sensations are being stimulated. Can I sense what's the taste in my mouth as I put my foot down? Oh, could that like stimulate me slightly differently to put my weight in a little bit differently? Okay, this might sound very nerdy, but this is how you get out of pain, by waking up your brain, by shifting the neurological pathways that stimulate that one piece of your brain that's been overused because you've been in this habit for like 55 years and it's not efficient. You learned it, but no, and it's not efficient. And then once you learned it, you've like forgot that you have attention in a brain, and maybe you could feed yourself some new sensations. So basically, once we learn things and we start repeating them, they become habits, and then we're not actually stimulating our brain neurologically. We stop neurologically developing. And that's when old age happens, and a whole shitload of things that come out of dehydration. Because once you stop stimulating your brain, the tissues get dehydrated, the communication with the brain stop, and the periphery like degrades, because you're not inspiring yourself. You're not taking your attention to places within you, and you're not lighting up new spaces in your brain. So in somatics, we do that for the purpose of, developing capacities of attention, focusing, concentration, for the purpose of treating postural ailments. Because if you wake up new neurological pathways, you might unload this hip that you've been overworking. So we can do it for therapeutic reasons, for chronic pain in the body. We can do it for hydration reasons. If you're not stimulating your brain, you basically start creating like an aquarium effect within you, where there's like not electrical signals, so you're not like pulsating the fascia. It starts to get dehydrated, you get brain fog. That's how sclerosis comes about, when you don't learn nothing new. Like your immune system goes down, your lymphatics goes down. You have to be using this brain neurologically. Keep developing, keep learning. I don't know, listen to Einstein or someone. So what I'm saying is, babies have to do it to become functional adults. Then when we become functional adults, if we slip into habits, we stop neurologically developing. But neurological development is important to keep our health alive, because if we slipped into habits, then we start overusing the same pathways, and this thing starts going down, the activity starts going down, and then we're not creating new fluids in the body. So the reversal of the aging process, it's not a reversal, it's not like anti-aging, it's aging without losing capacity. Just because you've hit puberty and learned how to walk and eat and possibly communicate doesn't. And then also the other thing that happens is that shit happens to you and you start developing coping mechanisms. You start getting afraid of doing this, doing that. Maybe it's too scary. We become more fragile as we age. We don't venture out. Society tells us, oh, you're 47, you're not. I don't know what they say about 47-year-old women. That's what I think about what they say. You operate within all kinds of spaces of prejudice against Eastern Europeans, against, I don't know, there's all kinds of prejudices that put you in a little box, so you don't venture out of it because you don't want to be excluded out of spaces. You don't laugh too hard, you don't smile too hard, and that's different for different cultures. Some cultures are a lot more tolerant of human expression and others not. But human connection is very important for your neurological development, playfulness in how you eat and sleep and walk is very important for your neurological health. And just because you've learned to put your shoes on and operating a spoon does not mean that from then hands on playfulness and learning is not like, just because you're an investment banker and you know how to dial in those numbers, it doesn't mean that from now on you just like, you don't have to use your playfulness, you don't have to put yourself in a learning environment, you don't have to make mistakes. It's a continuous process where we use movement to regenerate the body, keep the brain neurologically alive, keep the vital organs working by stimulating the attention, taking our attention to something through movement, through sensing and feeling the experience of a movement inside us and with the world around us, because movement only happens if we connect to something. I'm not moved to be, I need to be moved to move. I need my attention to be stimulated with something new and different. If I'm like overstimulated, I'm constantly changing jobs, this and that, I might get stressed out because I cannot cope with the level of adaptability that I have to produce. I also need some stability and some sensation of safety that I don't have to be performing so much. But there has to be a balance. You cannot just get into the groove of, you have your house, you have your guy, and there is the need for new sensations, new awareness, and that's where somatic practice is valuable. You have to be able to move a little bit different, and we work with moving our attention and clarifying our attention to expose some of our habits and movements and bring new sensory stimulation to ourselves, and practice our capacity to allow that sensation, because when you've developed habits, you block certain experiences. You've just like, that's not something I put my awareness in, I'm not even gonna go there. So this is what somatic practice is, and basically we move by having our attention stimulated, by having our attention drawn, by connecting. So connection, and then the thing I'm going to leave you with is that for me, yoga, where you're just practicing your exercises to become super functional movers, you cannot do yoga that way. This is not the original teaching of yoga, because you still have to have the human experience of connecting with people beyond your family and kin and the people that you recognize as your tribe. If you cannot expand beyond that awareness, you will start to dehydrate. That's how it works.